Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the video. We're going to discuss yet more Radeon 300 series rumours, and there are a bunch of them, but most of this is going to be dealing with possible rebrands. So, rebrands, for those of you who are not too familiar with the practice, are pretty simple. Let's say you have generation 1 of a card, let's say a particular set of specifications in a family. Well, what happens is when a next generation of that card comes out, sometimes the company will basically re-release the first wave, rename it, rebrand it, maybe slightly change the specifications. For example, they might slightly increase the clock speeds or what have you, but generally they will rebrand it for the previous generation. A great example of this would definitely be Pecan, or Pitcan, or however you wish to pronounce it. Now, Pitcan was originally launched in 2012 and was the 7870, and then it ended up being renamed to the Kraiko, which was then launched as the HD 8860, and then later on it was released as the R9 270. And there were a couple of slight differences regarding clock speed and so on, but I think you get the idea. So now AMD are going to be doing some rebranding as well with the 300 series. Now, this information is based on the Catalyst 15.3 betas. So if you go ahead and download those betas and look at the device IDs in them, you'll notice that a bunch of extra stuff have popped up, and this has actually appeared. Some folks over at Anantex forums have found this information. It's quite interesting. It's certainly not conclusive, and it also doesn't tell you all of the bits and bobs in the series. So if you're thinking that you're going to go ahead, download those and say, oh yes, I know how much, how many shaders are in the new R9 390X, then you're going to be a little bit out of luck. But it does kind of give you a slight insight. So the R9 370 is Trinidad, also known as Pitcan, or however you wish to pronounce it. I honestly don't know. But it's once again coming back to life. Probably is going to be even cheaper. Who knows what they're going to do with the actual clocks, however. Maybe they're going to slightly increase the memory frequency or the GPU speed or what have you. Then we've got Bonaire. Now Bonaire is going to be Tobago, T-O-B-A-G-O, and that's going to be the R9 360. And then Oland is coming back as well, which used to be kind of like their lower range performance, and that's going to be the 350X, the 340, and the 340X. So a bunch of, cards which are typically 1080p at most. Generally, they're typically like a step above the built-in APUs, GPUs built inside the APUs. And then you're even going to be seeing the R5 310 as well, which is, believe it or not, a rebrand of the original Radeon 7470, all the way back in time. So obviously you're not going to be looking at performance that's going to rival the Titan here, but once again it's pretty much for low range graphics and so on. So is this a bad thing? Is this like a negative situation? Well, I think some people are going to be a little disappointed, but simultaneously it does make some sense, and we were discussing possibilities of rebranding just yesterday. Now, what we do know, according to the rumours, and obviously what we know according to rumours is pretty much like a guess, but we can make an educated guess based on the rumours, and what it appears is there's going to be a multitude of new cards thanks to obviously high bandwidth memory and so on. So what it appears like, and this is at face value, that AMD are going to be introducing certain new cards, particularly the ones with high bandwidth memory. Those cards are going to be quite expensive, mostly because of obviously the quite intricate engineering as well as rather expensive parts that go into those GPUs. Now, what the performance is for those, I don't have a clue, but leak slides are showing to be 60% faster than the R9 290X. So, in other words, quite considerable, particularly if we're dealing with 4K. 5%, 10%, But when you're dealing 60% improvement of the previous generation, that's pretty good. That's much better than Kepler to Maxwell if we're looking at a part-for-part basis anyway. So that's pretty cool. But the downside is it's going to be more expensive. You're looking at $700 plus. So it could be $750, it could be $800. Shrug. Then we've got the R9 390, which is supposedly going to be $700, smack bang. That is supposedly faster than the R9 290 X, once again, considerably faster. The exact performance, I don't know. And then there's going to be a bunch of other cards like the 380X and the 380, and those look to be new. Those look to be like new and shiny, and those cards are supposedly, at least according to rumours, gonna be at least as fast as the R9 290X. So hopefully, what I'm personally hoping is that the mid-range cards are eventually replaced. And by mid-range, I'm actually probably even going low to mid-range here, to be fair. So that would be the Olans. So basically, to use no code words and just to say, in terms of GPU parts that you'll buy on the street, the 250s all the way to say the 280, hopefully we're going to get full shiny versions of that in say 8-12 months time. They're probably going to release them and phase out the old parts. What they're probably doing is just giving a good way to get rid of the old GPU parts, and B, it's probably going to help them to establish the brand and kind of, roll into the next generation. As long as they're good, solid lineup, then great. But let's face it, the real reason that people are probably excited about this are not the low range parts anyway. The real reason people are interested, at least most gamers, it's like same as Nvidia. Yes, there was a lot of excitement over the GTX 960, but that was really the lowest end that most people were interested in. It's like the 960, and for a lot of gamers, the 970. So hopefully with AMD, we're going to be looking at performance, which is going to be really impressive on the high end. So rebrands, not particularly surprising, but once again, this is rumours. This is not AMD confirming it. This is based on the information that's been extracted from a driver. So how accurate that is when it actually turns out to, appear on our store shelves, it could be completely and utterly wrong. So anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.